think I'm in. Are you up on SRS? Are you up on SRS?
Hello.
You're a bit crackly, like, not quite sure why. Or very crackly, actually.
Okay, test.
Oh, that's better, yeah.
I think it's the voice detection threshold and you haven't set it up yet.
Right.
I don't have the bag skin. It doesn't look like it's...
Oh.
Actually, no, I do. It's just, I've forgotten what I called it.
Wasn't it just called The Bag?
I think it's called 74 Flying Tigers 37 Juliet, the bag.
Oh, okay, fine.
So I was looking for the bag, it wasn't there.
Request rearming. Copy.
Oh, hello.
All good?
Yeah, there's some interesting control weirdness going on in the front. Well, we can sort that out another time. Yeah, all good. I'm good in the front.
Why does the parking brake not work anymore?
It's broken in multiplayer. It doesn't work.
Okay, I was gonna say. Right, okay, battery's coming. Okay,
Sweet.
test one now.
Engine 1 fire. Engine 1 fire. Engine 2 fire. Engine 2 fire. APU fire. APU fire. Aft deck fire.
Okay, 3 fires,
Aft deck
master
fire.
warning, and aft deck fire in the back.
Same in the front.
Test 2.
Engine 1 fire. Engine 1 fire. Engine 2 fire. Engine 2 fire. APU fire. APU fire. Aft deck fire.
3 fires, 2 discharge,
Aft deck fire.
master warning, and aft deck fire in the back.
Same in the front.
Engine 1 fire. Engine 1 fire. Engine 2 fire. Engine 2 fire. APU fire. APU fire. Aft deck fire. Aft deck fire.
3 lights, master warning, EFID, and the audios.
In the back.
I'm sure they had fixed that thing about it only saying the audios once in the last patch. But there we go.
Yeah, seems not.
Engine 1 fire. Engine 1 fire. Engine 2 fire. Engine 2 fire. APU fire. APU fire. Aft deck fire.
3 lights, discharge, master warning, EFID, audios, master warning cancelled. Has that stuck for you? Is it still on?
Yes.
And that should have reset?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's a me bug. I've not flown in the back with anybody else in the front to know if that's a me bug or if that's a system. Yeah, anyway. I'm good.
Okay. APU's coming on.
Sweet.
Hydraulic failure.
My tats.
Yours.
And I'll hold on. Done the egg ops.
No. Is it aligned enough? It's still green.
Green's good.
Green's not good. Oh,
White.
green's
Green's good.
white.
White's
Yeah.
fine.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. My bad. It's 1,300 meters. Okay, fine. Looked at that a second ago. It looked enormous. Actually, nothing to choose between the two. Astonishingly.
I guess because they've literally just aligned.
Yeah. 1865s. Zeros.
Can already see it drifting.
Oh God.
I swear it's worse than it was before. Like I can actually, I'm watching it move.
Yeah. Nice.
Okay, ready for engine?
I'm ready.
Brake speed off. Sound lights we've got collisions white and off. Inlet ice melt is actually required because 3 degrees.
Yep.
Haven't done this yet. Okay. Clear on the left and right. It's up, yeah. There's throttle. Ground noise. Okay, engine 1.
Yeah, looks good.
Brother, can you hear the background?
What background?
It's in like breathing.
No.
Okay, good, because I can see the microphone popping and detecting.
Oh, I mean, yeah, no, I'm not sure.
Okay, engine 2 starting now.
Sweet.
There's up. Starting. Okay, inlet ice will keep on.
Yep.
Power levers.
I probably put the pitot anti-ice on as well, to be fair. That's something DCS likes icing up, doesn't it?
Okay, there's 66. Power lever. Torques man. Temps man.
I think you've still got your volume cutoff on SRS maybe set a bit aggressive because you're getting clipped a bit.
Okay, I'll wind it back a little bit. Okay, there's levers in fly. Rotor's at 101. Torque stable, temp stable. Engine started. Cool, APU's coming off. And the bleed air has come on.
Just watching it like a
Right, I think we're ready to go.
Okay, before tax checks, chocks not required, anti-ice.
Is on the pitot and inlet.
Sweet, bleed air.
Is on.
Anti-ice, we've talked about as required. Processor select, we are on auto on SP2. External lights.
On white flashing
Searchlight.
is off. I can turn it on.
Parking brake. Don't need it. We still haven't worked out what we're doing with the lighting. I think we should have the nav lights on bright in the daytime as well, personally.
Okay,
but
I'll do that now.
I don't know what the army do. Might see if I can try and find some videos of Apaches in the dark at airfields. Parking brake
Is off.
tail wheel
Is locked.
sweet. Taxi checks. I'm ready for taxi checks.
Okay, we'll keep the wheel locked for the brakes, and then we'll do it for the turn.
Yeah.
Unlock it for the turn. Okay.
Sweet.
First Tower Cody 81, ground taxi, Jolly Pad to Jolly Ramp for departure from the Jolly Ramp close traffic.
Okay, there's 30%. There's movement. My brakes. Good.
Looks good.
Your brakes.
My brakes.
Good.
Look good.
Okay. Tail wheels unlocked.
Yeah, tails clear left.
Copy. Yeah, if you don't know where you're going, you'll easily get lost on these taxi lines because there's no colour and distance.
No.
LS Tower Cody 81, single H64s, taking the Jolly Pad for a southbound departure to make for left close traffic.
I've cut the corner here, so I kind of scoop in just on our right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the movement area is the edge of the black and yellow dash thing that we're going over here, right? So the fact that the actual H is marked over there, like the whole of this is a helipad, right? So I mean you can be on it wherever you like. The H is a target. It's not it's not the limits of the pad.
But I mean, like the taxi line brings us off to the right there a little bit. So.
Yeah.
Okay. And fair prior warning, I haven't flown the Apache in about 2 weeks, so.
Yeah. Fun.
See how this goes.
I think the last update, the flight model got a bit better again. Like, got a bit nicer. Yeah.
Go.
So I would turn for your hover checks. I would do them with the nose a little bit further left because you've got wind from the east, right? So you've got at the moment you've got like a wind coming over your left shoulder, which is kind of the worst possible position. So I'd probably I mean that's fine, isn't it? Because now you're like within 20-30 degrees of the wind. Like that'll be much nicer to hold with a little bit of left. Like that'll help you because that'll mean you'll need less left pedal right as you lift. That'll be weather vaning to the left for you. Whereas if you're literally with it over your left shoulder, then it just not a nice position. So.
Just trying to get this tail wheel relocked.
Yeah, good luck.
It'll sort itself out once we get airborne.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're taking off and then kicking off to the right down there, down.
Yes, down
Yeah.
there, and then once we're up to 200 feet, just paralleling the runways, and then we'll call that we're turning left crosswind. I think we probably should do is essentially climb up. I mean, we should be up to near pattern height, shouldn't we? 700, like 2,500 before we turn left across the runways. So
Yeah.
before takeoff checks.
tail wheel not being locked is actually spinning us around a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to say, you just use the distance you've got to taxi forward. It's not a problem. Like,
Yeah.
it's just,
It should be locking. It's just not. Lock is selected.
yeah, you might need to just give it like a pedal wiggle and then see if that helps it. I get the impression it's still, if you're in the external view, it's still 90 degrees. Yeah, you need to get up to like 2 or 3 knots going forward before it does anything.
Okay.
There you go.
There you go. That's a new
Yeah,
tone.
like it's the SAS saturate. And I think when you get the tone but no SAS saturated warning, it's when it's saturated on the yaw channel, because they don't appear to have connected that to the EFUD, but they have connected it to the tone.
Okay.
Because ED. Yeah. Yeah, the thing with the tail wheel, I think the way they've got it modelled, until you get to like 3 knots or something, it just doesn't do anything, so it will just slide sideways like perfectly happily at 2 knots.
Right, okay. Okay, so air service safe, ground override is off, tail wheel's locked,
Yep.
park brakes off, power levers fly. Fuel is £70 lower than I plugged this in for, but that's good to know. We burn £100 on that.
Yeah. I've just got the tail wheel warning. Engine and flight pages look good to me in the front.
And in the back.
ASC, I'm assuming, is all still off. Yeah.
Yeah, I've just turned the CMWS on for
Yeah,
procedure
fair
reason.
enough. Practice, yeah, no worries. Com, we've got guard Nellis Tower on the UHF, and the backup UHF is Nellis Control if we go anywhere. Nav, there's Charlie 51's dropped on the jolly pad. That is it.
Okay.
Sweet.
Okay, ready for power checks then. Gonna be
Thanks.
fun.
See, what's wrong with that?
Easy peasy.
Yeah.
More altitude on that. Okay, and in true DCS fashion, torque is like 4% lower than I calculated, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Alright, do you want to do the comm for the takeoff and then I'll...
Yeah.
Lewis Tower, Cody 81, lifting from the jolly pad, making left close traffic for Golf.
Okay, here we go. There's 200 for the overflight.
Nice. 200. Yep.
Let's do
And
the
then might as well
turn.
just come right. Yeah,
do the turn
perfect.
now.
Just coming up to 2500 to your pattern altitude, so there you go.
Yeah. There, okay, yeah, sorry, I was going for the AGLs.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think it is a bit low at Nellis here,
It is,
which
yeah.
is weird because the jet pattern's high, right? Like,
It's more like 500 AGL.
yeah, on this side and 600 over there.
Nellis, Coyote 1 single Apache, upwind.
I need to get in the habit of using the trim more as well because it's slowly becoming more important.
Yes, I was going to say, and also once the heading hold starts working a bit more aggressively, I suspect like that'll be really useful. Like just clicking the trim and then it staying in coordinated flight on that heading is somewhat useful.
Okay, coming left.
Now let's go 1 single Apache left crosswind, close traffic for Golf.
What?
Trying to gauge the distance.
Oh yeah. I'd probably turn about here. If you look
Yeah.
left, you've got a line of power lines. That's roughly. Can you see them in the?
Yeah, I think so. On my
yeah,
eyes,
there you go.
yeah.
Yeah, your line of sight.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you had the really good local area knowledge for this, I reckon, because like
Yeah.
there's not much to see of the airport, so like
No.
if you don't know where the runways are relative to other things, you just
Yeah, I mean the thing is, isn't it, is that you see different stuff, right? So like you see the buildings, but you don't see the runways. So it's like that whole thing of like, what does an unlit airport look like at night? Like,
Yeah.
it just looks like nothing, right? It's the gap in, when you look at a city, you look for an unlit airport at night before the lights are on. Like it's the bit that's dark compared to everything else. You don't see anything at all.
yeah.
But then like the B1s on the bomber pad stand out quite well. Those like those 4 blobs, like you kind of see those. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. It's interesting that they've modelled the pixelation of this flare, but nothing else. I can't help but notice, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, that's the same thing, isn't it? It's like why the FC3 F-15 is the best BVR jet, because none of the limitations are modelled and all of the capabilities.
Yeah.
You only get limits if you choose to fly something they've done more modelling on. Super annoying. Just for reference, 45 degrees from, I'll give you I don't know if you're going to be able to see like how far back you'll get to actually see this 45 degrees from the has cargo pad, but it's
I
actually
would go about now for the end of the jolly, for the end of the
yeah, that you're not far off actually.
Yeah. It's basically like almost at the gimbal lock.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now let's carry 81 single H 64 left crosswind Golf.
Quick maps, 300, there you go. Let's commit to that.
Let's Coyote 81 turning finals for the jolly pad remaining east, for the Golf taxiway remaining east of the runways.
A little bit early.
Yeah, you've got a left to right cross window, haven't you? So it'll probably sort you out.
Yeah,
Get there.
hopefully. A little bit low at this point as well.
I don't think you are actually. It depends how far down Golf you're planning on going, to be honest. But
To the intersection. right here.
Oh, right here.
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously, I'm adjusting
Yeah, no.
sideways for the thing, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I think you're good then. That's 10 degrees there, so
Yeah.
I think you're good. I wouldn't just come below your 35 knots just because you're one engine flyaway at 300. Just keep that until, I don't know, 200 or something, and then just let the nose come up.
Yeah, it's a lot more nose down than you think it is.
Yeah. Everybody's doing that at the moment. I don't know whether that's a flight model change, but everyone's getting like a little bit slow in that mid section. Like they're slowing down and then speeding up and then slowing down again. There's your rate of descent just creeping in. It'll nose up a lot as you pull the power. There we go.
A little bit high. Ooh.
No, that was alright. Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
Stabilized back and early and high, but we'll go with that.
Yeah. I mean, what's happening is, what happened there is, I think what's happening to everybody with this version of the flight model is that in that sort of mid to late section of the approach, they go a bit slow. And when they go a bit slow, they then end up having to re-accelerate at a point where they should be slowing down. It's like the whole, like, it's almost like at the boat where if you start high and you try and fix it in the middle, you end up with a higher risk of a ramp strike because you're transitioning from high to low. Does that make sense? Like, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
That same rule about don't try and fix a high in close, it's almost the same here. If you try and aggressively fix a slow in the later stages of the approach, you'll end up going fast. And what that does is it means that as you arrive over the pad, you have to be quite nose high, and that creates lots of transients because you're arriving with a nose high attitude. Whereas if you didn't get slow in the first place, then you'd continue slowing down nice and smoothly, and you wouldn't have a go faster, go slower cycle to chase yourself through.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I also think, like, because the sensors down and forwards, everything looks faster and lower. So at that point, I was like, right, here's my head position, leveled off, and I was like, 25 feet. I was like, oh, okay, I can go back, I can go down more.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you look like you're further forward, and yeah, so it's just about keeping that scanning, and like for me, it's the one engine flyaway, which you can broadly treat as 35 knots, right? So that's why till you're at an altitude where you are committed to the ground, if you have an engine failure, you want to be at 40 knots. So you come into and anything down to 40 knots is fine because they're all flyawayable speeds, right? So if you want to fly the whole of your final at 40 knots, that's totally fine. I mean, it'll take you ages, but it's totally fine. But if you fly the whole final at 30 knots, well, if you're at 400 feet, you've got a problem now because you don't want to be dropped from 400 feet. Right, should we go around again?
Yeah, let's.
No, this is KA1 lifting from Gulf left coast traffic.
So if you're doing the VMC, just try and get the nose a little bit more down than you did the last time, because the last time we got to 50 feet, we were like 50 feet and 35 knots. Again, kind of touching that avoid curve. If we're not with this weight, we wouldn't have been, but if we were a bit heavier, yeah, sweet, that's much nicer.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
It's that thing about not having pitch attitude in the hover symbology, so you kind of get nose down and you're like, is this sketchy?
How?
Yeah.
To be brutally honest, unless I need it, when I'm doing a VMC takeoff, as I push the stick forward, I push the symbology switch forward. Like, it goes immediately. Like, as soon as the nose goes down, I click it into transition. I don't really wait for hover to saturate, like, because you get what, like 3 seconds of useful data out of it, and then you have to switch. So I'm like, fuck it, I'll just switch now.
Yeah.
Okay, one left crosswind for Gulf.
And then this is going to be a much shorter crosswind because obviously we're not crossing the whole of Nellis, and also you're at 70 knots because you've acclimatized.
A little bit high. Do the turn here. It was too long on the last one.
KJ1 left downwind.
about 1,800 meters lateral for from Golf, just for distance spacing.
Yeah.
You're still closing a little bit. Yeah, that's the ground track roughly. So yeah, I think the thing with that final is it's just like I say, just when it gets down to 40 knots, being kind of conscious of like keeping that airspeed and being like, okay, I'm down to the wherever that happens, right? I mean, you know, you're like, okay, I'm down to my sort of final approach speed, my on speed indication, whatever you like to call it.
Now let's go to 1 turning left base for Golf.
And then at that point, actually just keeping that until you're down through the avoid curve. You know, not the avoid curve, but till you're committed to the ground in 200 feet or something like that. And then you're like, okay, fine, I am going to ground. I can start pulling the last bit of speed back, and not getting, you know, not finding yourself at 30 knots at 350 feet and wanting to re-accelerate or you know, getting tempted to.
Yeah. Probably a little bit late on this actually.
This is it also looks pretty high, I suspect, if you're going to where you went before.
Yeah.
So, yeah, give it a good, yeah, nice, good chunk of power off.
At the now, yeah.
Yeah,
It's more like
absolutely.
12 at this point, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And to keep it coming low and keep some back cyclic in, don't let it accelerate. Nice. And you're going to need to hold that nose high probably the whole way down now. And what you're going to have is a big left-hand transient, and when you do that, the nose is going to want to crank up on you a lot, so you're going to have to tinker this out.
Okay, a little bit. Ooh, there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Nice.
There's the power for the great descent. There's a trim. Squirrely.
Sweet. Well rescued.
Squirrely and short.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, it's short because you're doing it under sensor. So I think the thing about doing this under sensor is you really, really need to look long of where you're landing, even more so than if you're doing it with your eyeballs. So if you're, you know, if you're aiming for that, you know, the junction of the yellow lines that's kind of in your field of view now, right? Like, if that's what you were aiming for, then look at the very far edge of it, like look where the far taxiway line joins, you know, there now, where you are, or something like that. So, so you,
because when you consider the length of the aircraft, I reckon.
Yes.
I'll stick the sensor over the top of that intersection, and it will put.
And you'll probably be in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, out of my right window, I'm level with the taxiway line now to the right, and now you're probably level with it about now. So yeah, it's almost.
Yeah, it's basically 10 degrees of that.
Yeah.
Junction.
Yeah. And then plus the fact that even if you're doing it with your eyeball, you'd still want to look a little bit long of the target anyway. So it's like long of the target because that's good landing technique, and then long of the target because of the sensor as well, compounded.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. Yeah, takeoff profile was much better. And that rescue, like, that's exactly that. When you find yourself high, it's exactly what you did. You need to get the collective off early and just keep that higher rate of descent going all the way down to kind of ETL. And then if you get down to ETL and you're still needing 1,000 foot per minute, well then that means you can't rescue it, right? So that's the point at which you abort it. But you didn't. You were like, okay, we're coming down to 20 knots, and we were back on glide slopes. That was good.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you do a fixed wing base and you're high, so you just do like a 10-degree nose down, knowing that you're going to level off to the 3 degrees before you actually get to the runway.
Yes, absolutely. And if you start to get to the threshold and you're still needing 10 degrees, you're like, yeah, okay, it's too late. I need to go around. Exactly the same. So yeah, absolutely. Like, just basically fix it early is the key point of it, and fix it aggressively. Like, don't kind of just steepen it so that you arrive at the target. You have to steepen it to arrive at the glide slope, and then have enough time to sort that out.
Yeah.
Right, let's go around again.
Okay.
Alice 81 lifting Golf left close traffic.
Still not a fan of the trimming techniques we have to adopt.
Yeah, I know.
Like just then, I literally just press the button and let go of my stick.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very strange, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, there's 400 turning.
Clear left.
KG81 turn left crosswind.
Yeah. That takeoff was good as well. Seemed, yeah.
Catching the altitude.
LS Coyote 81 turn left downwind. LS Coyote 81 turning left base for golf.
So you're making these finals kind of at the shorter end of the 45. So what I would start doing is start washing a little bit of speed and altitude off on your base legs. So kind of come down to 500 or something and 65 knots. So yeah, it can be a descending base if if you want it to be, basically. So yeah, don't.
Yep.
And personally, what I do is I trim for that nose attitude, and that like now, and then I just sort of use that trim setting through most of the rest of the approach, because I kind of, that's a few degrees nose high, which is sort of with a sort of reasonable power setting. So when you pull in 40% torque, that puts you back essentially to your kind of hover attitude.
Yep.
LS Coyote 81 turning finals for golf.
Yeah, nice. And that's, what's that going to roll out as? Like 5 degrees,
Yeah,
maybe?
so push it a little bit long. Catch the
Yeah.
end, yeah.
Yeah.
There's the speed coming down as is conventional.
Yeah, yeah. But there, see what you've done is because you've caught that at 45, you've only needing to do small corrections. Like you're not having to go big nose down, big nose up, big nose down, big nose up. Now you can start pulling that nose up and just let it. Yeah, there you go. Hold that nose attitude. Doesn't even need to be that high. You could let the nose drop a bit. There you go.
Stop it coming short. It wants to. There's a power a little bit over the top on that, but take it as it is.
Yeah, so that was essentially just overcooked decelerating attitude in the last.
Too much rate descent into the catch, and then it's just like your nose up with more power than you need, and you're going backwards. So.
Yeah, at the end, but also I think the reason you ended up short was you just, when you, that kind of 45 knot decelerating phase, you actually put the nose quite high, partially because I think you'd got muscle memory from the previous view where you were arriving fast, and you weren't arriving fast this time. You put the nose quite high and you just decelerated early, essentially. If I'm sort of honest, when I'm doing these, I I don't really think, I mean, I haven't really paid super much attention to this as a reference, but I don't often have the line of sight cross not touching the horizon line in transition. Does that make sense? Like, I don't often have like free air between the bottom of the loss cross and the horizon line. If I'm more than the length of the cross nose up, well, the length of one of the legs of the cross nose up, that's kind of quite unusual. Anyway.
Yeah, this is trimming. Going all over the place.
Yeah.
Came in with quite a lot of stick forward on the hover trim there.
Yeah.
Trying to sort it out, and
it's difficult in the hover. Yeah. To be honest, at an airfield environment like this, I'm often inclined to just go to the ground. Like now, if we were going to ground taxi, which we're going to hover taxi, but what if it were me? I would just take the landing to the ground, hit the trim reset, and then lift again.
Yeah.
This is actually quicker than doing it. Or the other thing that is actually working a lot better now is holding the trim reset down, like the force trim hat down, and just decoupling it, and flying it, because the SAS seems like it does still work through that, or does work through it more correctly now. So yeah, I'm finding that like that whole thing about lifting to the hover with the button held down, actually you can do that now. It doesn't end in immediate disaster.
How does that affect, like, if you've got a position trimmed and then you depress the switch, it doesn't reset the trim, like you're still basically flying with the trim?
It's still flying with the
reset?
Yes.
Yeah.
Until you let go. Yeah, so what happens is when you press it, it doesn't update to a new trim position, but what it doesn't do is it shouldn't be trying to drive you back to the old trim position. So it doesn't, how do I explain this? While you're holding the button down, if you've moved your joystick axes, like the DCS-ism part of the trim, right, that isn't affected until you let go of the button. But what is affected is that the SAS inputs that attempt to drive you back to the heading that you trimmed on and stuff like that are removed. So you get some of the kind of active part of that is removed, but the passive part of the stability control that just damps your inputs, that's not removed. So if you're finding you're fighting, like particularly the yaw, just holding the button down and sorting everything out and then letting it go at the end of stabilizing everything is sometimes works. Yeah, you kind of have to play with it to get a feel for when it's useful and when it's not.
Yeah.
Right, shall we do some hover taxiing? So let us, because we're going to do some rolling takeoffs, so let us do, we are going to, if we pedal turn 90 right here and then taxi into the EOR here.
LSKT8, off taxiing from Golf to take 21 more left.
Then we're going to taxi forward a couple of feet. We're going to stop on one of these, any one of these junction lines, not the last one, but in the EOR.
Yeah.
So might as well stop at the first junction we get to.
Double junction one, yeah.
Yeah, and then we're going to keeping the same heading, which I've realised is probably as hard as I can make this because it's tailwind. You might want to put the stab to 0 if you haven't already done that. We're going to keep this heading. We're going to translate left along the line, then forward, then right, back along the line, back to the same taxiway line we're on, and then we're going to go to the right. Because I'm
right. I think I understood what you just said.
So keep this heading.
Yeah.
There's a taxiway line that essentially is 90 degrees to your left. We're going to, keeping on this heading, we're going to translate left along that taxiway line.
Right, you are, okay.
And then we're going to move forward a line, and then we're going to translate back right. I quite like this exercise, I've not thought of this before.
Sounds bloody challenging. Okay, so I'm going...
So this is the...
Okay,
you're going left along there, yeah, absolutely. And this is where you want to use the symbology. So use that, and I wouldn't... Yeah.
So head forward and symbology.
Yeah, or head left and symbology. But this is the one where definitely it's like just fly the symbology and then use the FLIR to check you're not going to hit anything and you're clear left. Or use your co-pilot. I mean, this is a time where in reality, like, you'd just be like, dude, I'm moving left, make sure we don't hit anything. Like, that's totally fine. If we were both on sensor, then it would definitely be the person in the front's job to be eyes left, like checking you left doing this, right?
Yeah. How far along are we going?
All the way to the next line.
Okay.
And then when we get to that line to the left, which we can go forward one section, and then we'll go back to the right. And when we're going back to the right, what I want to see if you can this genuinely is possible. Like, I don't know how to describe this. If you rotate your head 90 degrees to the right and just fix that line of sight, and now ignore the video and just fly the symbology.
Yeah, it's it messes with my mind because I think
does.
I think the symbology's changed, even though technically it's still in front of me.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've developed muscle memory in DCS for knowing where my head is, even though my head is forwards. If that makes
Correct.
sense.
Yes, absolutely. And this is where this is the thing that people struggle with. It's reading the symbology oriented versus the aircraft, and then reading the video oriented versus the head position. So what you're looking for now is, can you translate right using the symbology to fly the aircraft? And the only indicator you've got of aircraft heading really is the heading tape at the top, and you can see you just need a touch more left pedal to get that. You were on 306 when you started. Yeah, and you can do this, and you're not moving your head, but you're just changing focus between looking at the symbology versus looking at the world versus looking at the symbology. So you use the video to tell you what to do, and then you look back at the symbology to tell you what the aircraft is doing, and you just flick between the two. But you don't need to move your head to flick between the two. You're just changing which part of that information you're taking in. See? There we go.
I think air-to-air refueling in the Harrier with the SAS off is easier than this.
Yes, I genuinely think this is the hardest thing I can find to do in DCS.
Easily.
Yeah. But you can do it. Like, your brain can work out how to do this.
Yeah, because it's the hardest mechanical thing in DCS, hovering, combined with the hardest visual thing, which is
yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, cool. But that, to me, that's the exercise, right? If you can orient your head in one direction for video, and then completely uncouple that from the symbology. Do you want to do another one? Do you want to go back left and right?
Sure.
Yeah. You don't need a line. It's just the.
Okay. Sorry. You said back left and right. Am I going left and then going backwards, or?
Oh, you could go back. Yeah, why not? Do that. Go left, backwards, right. That'll do. That's a good idea. But it's trying to do this with your with your head out of the side of the aircraft. And the sort of dynamic version of this that I tried to get Joe to do the other day, and he'd never tried before, is orbits. Like, if you're trying to orbit around a point, and so you're looking over your shoulder, like over the EFAB out of the side of the aircraft, and trying to fly an orbit. It's the same thing. You're using the data on the HDU as the instruments, and then you're using the video as a video, but knowing that they are essentially completely uncoupled from each other. They're not, they're not linked.
Yeah.
And it's the same brain space that you need to shoot rockets as well. Like, once you can do this with this, then this helps you shoot helmet rockets, because it's the same thing. You've got aiming symbology on the eyepiece, but it's not related to the world. Right. So if you stabilise there, then you should be able to. Backwards is pretty easy actually, because like if you just
Just look forward and
you
go
just look
backwards.
forward and go backwards. Yeah, absolutely.
It's just we don't have any way to clear behind us. But good.
No, but you know you're clear. Yeah, you're definitely clear back two taxiway lines for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and you know, you probably only do this at this situation with someone in front of you.
You do it with a human out the front. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, and that's the other fun bit is can you go backwards looking out of the side? That really messes things up.
Oh yeah.
Cool. So yeah, let's do one more back to the right, back to that other taxiway line, and then we'll go onto the runway.
I feel like going right is for some reason harder for me.
Yeah, I mean the aircraft, bear in mind, will want to go left naturally, like it's a Western helicopter, right? So it's translating tendencies. Sorry, it will want to go right. It's translating tendencies right. So you've probably got some left trim in, if that makes sense. It'll hover left wheel low. Nice.
Coyote 81 single H64 taking 21 left for rolling takeoff left coast traffic.
And approach path is clear, and the runway looks clear to me.
Roger. Easy to forget where that head tracker is, isn't it?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and I'm not sure what. I mean, I've done a few things about it. Sometimes, if I think I'm going to do that, I put the act source into fixed, so it kind of makes it more obvious. Like it puts a cross in the middle of it. If you don't need the other person's line of sight. Yeah, various.
We just go with this.
Yeah, fair enough. What are you on, 1? Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright, you said that. Cool. Yeah, rolling takeoff, any flavour thereof. Whatever you want to do, really.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we're quite light, so what, 2,000, so we burnt nearly 1,000 pounds, so we burnt 15,500, so you'll probably get going at 35% torque, 40% torque, you might even fly off at 40, 45, something like that, so yeah, let it roll, but don't necessarily, I mean, it doesn't have to be a power limited rolling takeoff, if that makes sense. Like you can use the performance once you're off the ground to do whatever climb out profile you think is appropriate.
Okay. Get rolling.
Yeah, nice.
And we'll do a midfield crosswind, right?
Yeah, that sounds wherever you want, really. Just
Yeah.
as long as you've got the altitude, doesn't matter.
Basically,
No,
let's see.
absolutely no compulsion to follow either the big pattern.
Now this code 1 single H 64 turning left crosswind for 21 left close traffic.
So if we come back and we'll do, so we've done to the hover, so what we'll do is we'll do a rolling landing, another rolling takeoff, and then we'll come back and see if we can do some kind of that slow roll on kind of tail first into a sort of semi-rolling. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, like the kind of 5 knot thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The, you know, brown out possible, but short restricted distance kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, where are we? Okay, I know where we are.
Just coming over the power lines.
Now this code 1 left downwind 21 left.
I feel like if this was real life, getting out of the bag would be like when you walk out of a cinema and you forget it's still daytime.
Yeah.
Okay, cool that. 40, 45, a little bit longer for the rolling, 50, let's go.
Yeah, looks good.
LS code 1 left base 21 left. LS code 1 finals 21 left.
A little bit late, I think.
Maybe.
Crank that in. I mean, it's helicopters, you can just stop and turn at a point if you need to.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you overstood a tiny bit, but I mean that's like half a runway width or runway width, isn't it? It's not...
Okay, yeah, a little bit shallow as well, so let's and fast as well. Trim it down.
But rolling, I'm not sure
Okay.
shallow for rolling. I probably let it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, maybe. Depends on your touchdown point.
doesn't everything?
Yeah.
Okay, probably a little bit fast.
I mean, I tend to use the piano keys that you're aiming for now as the sort of my target
I mean,
point.
that's the actual touchdown point, though, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Keeping the speed coming down a little bit, trimming constantly. Aiming
Yeah.
for 40, I reckon.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. Cushioning the landing as we get here.
Just bring your head tracker in line. Yeah, nice.
There's inline trim. There's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, touchdown.
Sweet.
Oh, keep it level. Back with the stick.
Yeah, and then just don't take too much collective off. So keep the 30%. Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
Right. Let's do another one.
LSK 81 lifting 21 left, left coast traffic. LSK 81 turning left crosswind 21 left.
There's 400. Catch the 600 on the top. If they haven't made the SAS more saturatable, then we must have been saturating it all the time.
Yeah, I think. Well, I think what they're doing is they're adding functionality to the yaw channel. So before it didn't have heading hold. So what should happen is that it should always have heading hold. So like if you
So any heading change needs to be trimmed too, basically.
yeah, basically, and unless you've got pedal input in. So if you let me start again. If you deflect the pedals, it overrides it and it stops trying to get back to your heading. But if you then come back to near enough the trimmed pedal position, it will then try and go back to the trimmed heading, because it's interpreting that as you not wanting a heading change, right? So if you are running north and then you turn left, while you're turning it won't show you that message, but when you roll out, if you're at the same collective setting, the same wind and whatever, and you just go back to the same pedal setting, it will now think that you're 90 degrees off heading and it will put right pedal in to try and turn you back to where you were.
Yeah.
And it does that above 40 knots.
This is another rolling, right?
Yeah. And also it blends that with trying to keep you, sorry, it does that below 40 knots, and above 40 knots it tries to keep you in aerodynamic trim. So,
Okay.
and then I think there's some logic about the crossover zone, which I haven't exactly read, but yeah. So what you'll find now with this setting is actually if you just go and engage hover hold or position hold, right? You go to a hover and you put position hold on, and with the attitude hold mode, which is in position hold functionality below 5 knots, you can now make small collective changes and go up and down, and your heading won't change because it will actually keep you on the magnetic heading that you trim to, which is what it should do.
Yeah.
LSK 81 left base 21 left.
Yeah.
as an ergonomic thing in this helicopter, it could be a lot nicer if it had a blinking velocity vector at the edge of the HDU film. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you can be like, oh, I'm going down more than I was because it's moved down the right hand side of the screen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's get some trim on here.
Other than you having to kind of look for it and find it.
Yeah, exactly.
See where it is. Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I said to Joe is don't be frightened, like with these, if you want to come into longitudinal trim early, like that's not a bad thing. Like, you know, it's creating more drag, but I mean, you're landing right, so you don't really care. So yeah, if you want to bring that and true that up early so that you've got one less thing to do in the round out, it seems, I don't know, it seems sensible to me anyway. And then the cushion, you almost don't need one because the weird ground effect extra bit you get at 5 feet in DCS will just kind of, there you go, do it almost for you. And then when you touch down, just don't come below that 30% torque, so just touch down.
I can't.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. So as little torque as you can, and then just back side click. I mean, you can come down below, I mean, 30%, which is DCS 26, right? So, yeah. Nice. That was good.
Okay.
Right. Are you happy? Do you wanna do any other bits?
We are not. Yeah, I was trying to find the center line because you can't really see it.
Yeah.
I think it's like there. Yeah. Okay.
It's just to right. Yeah.
Yeah. We wanted to do that slow roll, didn't we?
Yeah. If you've got time, you want to do another? Yeah. Why not?
Yeah. What time is it? Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Let's go to 1 lifting, 21 left over traffic.
Yeah. We'll go. Yeah, why not use the same target point you were using before and use that little bit of golf taxiway and just roll forward, and then we can do a hover reposition across.
You know, there's a prototype AH-1Z that has a tricycle landing gear.
Really?
Yeah, it's really hideous, but it exists.
That sounds somewhat questionable.
I think it's probably one of those things where it's like, oh, we need a wheeled helicopter. I was like, oh yeah, let's do it.
Get some, yeah, give some Marines a socket set and see what happens.
Yeah, pretty much.
The thing I said to Joe was don't sort of necessarily get in the habit of thinking that these rolling takeoffs have to be like gentle climbs. Does that make sense? If you're doing it for dust or, you know, any other consideration, or just because you think it's safer, like, you know, you haven't got a one engine landing spot or whatever reason, don't be frightened to use the performance. So, like, if you're rolling, you can roll off and accelerate to 50 knots and then, you know, use 80% torque to climb away if you want.
Yeah, I've kind of conditioned myself to not pull the collective up to the point where it needs to be to get above 60% torque. So I'm here like cranking it up, and I'm like, this feels wrong.
Yeah. It's a lot of travel at the top.
Now let's go to 1 left crosswind.
Yeah.
Now let's go 1 turning left downwind, 21 left.
So this is the approach where you just need to work on that, like, last bit where you were putting the nose quite high. It's just not to do that, for want of a more descriptive term, and just accept, you know, if you touch down at 5 knots or 10 knots or 15 knots, all of those are acceptable, or 3 knots if that makes sense. Like, don't fight too much for the deceleration. Just pick the nose attitude and just kind of let it. I say let it do what it wants. That's kind of a stupid way of saying it. Like
speed is not as important as descent rate.
Speed is not as important. Yeah, essentially, and just set that decelerating attitude and just make small corrections, because you don't need to absolutely nail, 0 or whatever particular airspeed.
I say with the clouds being exactly the same color as the heading tape text, it's,
yeah,
it's easy to just kind of forget about it. But yeah. That one.
Yeah, that's good.
Dallas Code 81 turning left base for golf.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say I do tend to have the flight page up a lot if I'm on the sensor, and I do use it because it's green and it's just you get I don't know. You just get more. I think you get more information in one field of view, in some ways, on the flight page than you do out of the HDU. But
when I have it up, I'm just not looking at it.
yeah.
Dallas Coyote 81 turning finals for golf taxi.
So yeah, just set your nose attitude a little bit nose high, and then just kind of keep it basically somewhere about there is probably, or yeah, a tiny bit more nose up. Put the horizon like halfway down the line of sight cross, and then just sit there. That's probably a bit too much.
Trimming is fun.
Yeah, and then just set that. See what happens. A little bit more nose up, maybe. Yeah, that's cool. And then look long of where you're going. Nice. Keep that. Don't. Yeah, this is the thing. Don't fiddle about with the nose attitude. Just let it come down and keep that. Yep. And you do have to throw out a lot of collective at the bottom. Perfect.
Okay. Yeah, it's because the nose attitude runs away from you if you don't start pushing forward. So you've got to like balance the push as you come in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's as you're pulling power at the end, your right hand needs to be going forward. Absolutely. And that's the thing I was saying. Like, I tend to fly those approaches intentionally with a bit of back stick trimmed in, so I'm actually trimmed. I don't fully trim the aircraft so that I don't have to hold the nose up, right? So that when I pull power, I'm kind of coming back to the middle and going forward, rather than going from the middle to a long way forward.
Yeah.
I guess the same in the Hornet, like kind of with that on the downwind, like when you do the brake and you put the flaps down. You don't trim all of that out, do you? You just hold the nose down, and then gradually, as you come back to on speed, you're coming sort of to the midpoint and then through to coming back. Almost the same technique, like, except that you're manually holding the nose up for deceleration, knowing that in 20 seconds you're not going to be doing that anymore.
Yeah.
Right. Any more for any more?
I think we've done everything on the list.
We've done everything on the list, yeah, absolutely. So I mean, it's supposed to be just essentially hovering, takeoff, departures, landings, and I feel like, barring that, I mean, the hovering exercise stuff, I think that's the thing. Like, I think everybody between this sortie and the next bag sortie, all they need to do is just do a bit of single player hovering with the sensor, or multiplayer, just on the server around Nellis, or whatever floats your boat. Yeah, but I think, unless you've got anything else, I think this is where we should be good.
Yeah, I think this is good. Let me just. No, it's still laggy.
The only way I've found of getting that better is to set the MFD thing setting in DCS to every frame, which makes it a bit better, but doesn't completely get rid of it. but yeah, it's still.
And this whole if you twist your head thing, it shouldn't be twisting the view, should it?
In roll, no, shouldn't at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The head tracker diamond shouldn't roll, which it currently does. It stays.
Oh right, yeah, I see that. In fact, it stays to the point where you can actually move it away from the centre line of the aircraft.
Yes.
Yeah, because oh yeah, like I can get it to go onto the left-hand canopy rail if I really, really twist my head over. Okay, yeah, that's an interesting one.
Yeah, so because the position of the head tracker appears to be coupled to. I'm not quite sure.
I think
what
it's
coupled
to the centre line of the field of view of the IHADs, right? So if you twist your head, it like if you yeah, so if you like put your I don't know what it's called, the queuing cross, whatever, like to the left, exactly to the left of the head tracker, and then twist your head around that point.
Yeah, it comes up off the horizon, doesn't it?
Yeah, because it's horizontal to where your queuing cross was.
Ah, yes, isn't it? So it's measuring the position of the head tracker relative to your line of sight. It's
Yes.
measuring that in the aircraft's coordinate frame of reference, and then displaying it in the IHAD's frame of reference.
Yeah, exactly.
And so when you roll, yeah. So.
Okay, well, that's worthy of a report.
Yeah, I think that's possibly already reported. But, yeah, the ones that aren't are all the multiplayer ones, like the stabilator not syncing and
Co-op rockets not working.
that is reported. But yeah, it's the ones where they want 2 tracks from both people. It needs people to actually log on with track recording enabled deliberately to do that.
I think that's a CBT thing that needs to be done. Just like, anyway. Let's roll it back then, shall we?
Yeah, so if we do, should we do, just for completeness, let's do the air taxi stuff. So if we do, we've got wind from the left. So if we lift from here and essentially air taxi direct Jolly, but with some kind
go
of...
to the Jolly East. So like kind of kick off to the northern end and then hook back and run along the road.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly, some kind of sensible mechanic to allow us to get there without doing a downwind into the Jolly pad over the ramp would be good.
Now let's Coyote 81's lifting from Golf air taxi direct Jolly pad.
Okay. I remember how much trouble I used to have with lifting off and not having it screw all over. Okay, let's spin it around to the right here. I also noticed a thing Peregrine described about the velocity moving. Velocity moving as you do that turn doesn't apply. I think it's measured from the mast rather than from the INU. If that makes sense.
Yeah, so you should see, if it was measured from the INU, you should see a rightward velocity when you're getting right pedal turns, but yeah, it doesn't seem to be modelled.
Yeah, okay, where are we going? It's off to the left here.
Just watch your altitude. As always in light patches, you end up at 150 feet.
Yeah.
To air taxi.
What is it? 100 to 200?
100.
100, okay.
No, below 100.
I'm actually struggling to see. Is that thing? Yeah, my line of sight, right?
Correct. Yeah. But yeah, you've just got
invisible.
an exact. You've got a sort of tailwind over your right shoulder at the moment. So.
I think actually the stab thing.
Yeah. So probably what I would do is come left, aim for the hush houses, and then kind of cut right into that. Does that make sense?
Maybe.
So just offset left a little bit, and then arc right and land on the pad thing, but just not oriented with it. Does that make sense? Like,
okay, yes. Yeah, so
use it as a pad, but
yeah.
And you just have to be careful of those generators that are on the near edge of it. But we should be able to go around the far side of them and kind of come back 45 degrees across it.
Yeah.
clear of the generators to right. Over the pad edge. Masts over the pad edge. Tails probably over the pad edge, I'd guess. Yeah, looks good.
Okay, I'll probably spin to the right just because of those actually, there's stuff everywhere, isn't there?
There's stuff everywhere. Your tail's clear to the right if you want to go left.
IQT-1, hover taxi, Jolly Pad East, Jolly Ramp, shutdown.
That was nice.
Yeah, with the sensor being so far forward, when you do those pedal turns, it looks like you're just sliding.
Going all over the jump. Yeah.
Sideways.
Yeah.
Control.
You always need, certainly in Apache, you're always going to need some inter-turn side click because of how high the tail rotor is, right? So if you put left pedal in, it's always going to give you some right roll. So you're always going to need a little bit of coordinated side click into the pedal turn, and then, you know, beyond that, to be honest, when I'm doing it on the sensor, I tend to actually use the symbology quite a bit. When I'm, you know, just doing a pedal turn, I'm almost just trying to zero out the velocities on the hover mode symbology, and then just using visual references for how far I'm turning, because, like you say, it looks like you're sliding sideways, and I can't really see any easy way of compensating for that and kind of going like, this is the amount of slide I expect to see. So to me, it seems easier just to use the symbology.
Yeah, which I imagine IRL, if you just spin around with a centered symbology, you'll be turning kind of around the co-pilot's seat.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But IRL, you probably would be able to say, well, I'm expecting to see 1 or 2 knots into turn. Do you know what I mean? That's something you could eyeball a correction for. Whereas eyeballing a correction for kind of what you visually would expect to see, I suspect, is going to be more difficult.
Yeah.
But, I don't know. Maybe. Tails cleared to the right.
And I'll angle us in for the
Yeah.
What'll be the second one, I think, right?
Yeah, I think so. I literally had that happen with Kennelly. We were taxiing in, and I was like, oh yeah, be careful, you go back to the same spot, because Apaches might pop up. And literally, as I said that, Joe spawned in to test something in SRS. And literally, we were like 20 feet from his tail, and I was like, oh yes, like that. And Joe was funny, he said like he spawned in, obviously the canopy open, and all he could hear was like really, really, really earth-shatteringly loud rotor blades, and he looked to the right and was like, oh my god, and just spawned straight out again. Apache appeared, like looked straight at us and then disappeared.
Now let's go D81 shutting down Jolly Ramp.
Okay, I think
Nice.
This is roughly what
Yeah,
the
it's
size.
close enough. What we need. Really need to get Stuka to add some, like, something on this ramp, like some kind of objects, because
There's no reference at all.
no visual references, no idea where you've come from, no numbers, and no clue where the front of the rotor discs are. Like,
Yeah.
I think we could fit, like, I mean, we could clearly fit taxiing down the centre line, but like, it's really not clear how much we can fit. Right, cool.
Right, okay. APU is coming up.
Sweet. Master off on the shutdown page. Sorry, that's just taking your sensor, but tough.
It's fine.
Should probably want you sticks off. Show page. Oh, can you do me a favour just to see if these are synced? I don't think they are. Can you go show and switch on inactive zones?
Yeah. And I'm seeing a weird kind of triangle zigzaggy shape. Kind of looks like the V for Vendetta logo.
Oh.
Like Like an A, maybe?
It should be a grid centered on the Golf taxiway, PF 1, 2, 3, and 4
Let me
in white.
do this, and I'll send it to you, and then you'll understand.
V for Vendetta logo. Oh right, that's totally messed up. The zones are right. So in your view, if you look where we are, there's a oh, but it's totally not oriented anywhere. What the fuck? So the centre cross.
Yeah. So what is happening? I'm imagining
So
the horizontal line and the kind of northernmost line are correct, because that's like the cross between the zones.
I think the cross as oriented is the one that, if you look in that screenshot you sent me, if you look down and left of the aircraft, that intersection is the centre point of a cross. So those two lines are oriented correctly. The one of them is parallel to the runways. The issue is that the centre point of the cross should be over where we landed on Golf, and the other two lines, I mean there should be 4 lines which should be the edges of the box, and they're not there. So yeah, still broken is I think the summary of that interaction. Okay.
Yeah, I'm imagining that this is what it's meant to be.
Oh. Yes, correct.
Yeah.
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 And then it's moved to be over the middle of the runways as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so the centre point is not, because I dropped it over the runways because it's 2 kilometre crosses, right? So that gives us the 1 mile of beam.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
For the downwind. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Epi's on. Power's coming back. There's 2 minutes. Here comes power levers. There's the rotor brake. With the rotor brake lock, is that literally like a pin that goes through the rotor head, or is it just like...
No, it's a friction clutch.
Okay, yeah. Because I know there's the brake and the lock, I was wondering what the difference between the position was.
They're both friction clutches, so there is no pin. So yeah, you by design wouldn't have that on a yeah, because it would obviously fail badly.
Yeah. Okay, ready for the APU to come off?
Yeah, good. Okay.
Okay.
Catch you in a minute.
Yeah.